All right. Hi, Jen.
Hello.
So, anyone who is tuning in, let me begin by introducing my friend, the Reverend Jen Cameron, who is the minister at St. Columba in Belleville, which many people know that's where my folks live. And there's actually a really neat connection between Graceview and you. So, how about you explain that and say hello to some people through that?
I shall do that. It's this. I'm really looking forward to this today. This is going to be a lot of fun. My dear friend Rebecca, who I met through her parents,
Yeah.
who have also become very dear friends, and so it's just really nice to continue to develop that friendship and that wonderful relationship. And yes, there is a great connection for me to Graceview, in that my husband Bruce grew up at Graceview and was baptized there, all that good stuff, has great stories about being in young people's there, which I will not share at this particular moment. uh, well, mainly because his mom may be watching. So I want to, yes, I want to say a special hi to my in-laws, to Cam and Sandy there. They, they are, they are my other parents. I have parents. It's great. I have parents everywhere. And so it's very special hello to my family, and my extended church family. I have a soft spot for Graceview. So hello to all.
All right, excellent. Well, I want to say hello to St. Columba people too. I've had the opportunity to preach there a couple of times, and they've always been so wonderful and welcoming. And of course, they know my mom and my dad, like they're, I don't know, mascots or extra, extra clergy kind of people who are around and do things
Yes.
at congregation. So, and also support the minister, because every once in a while, mom will say, "We had lunch with Jen." And I'll be like, "Oh, how's Jen doing?" And so I updates that way. So, so yeah, this is good. I'm glad to get to do this too. Fun way to spend some weeks in the summer as we continue to worship online. So our passage that we're looking at is Philippians 4:10 to 13, and you had said to me that Philippians is one of your favorite books, and I said to you that always fascinates me, because my dad says that Luke is his favorite gospel, and I don't know if I'm just bad at picking favorites, which is quite possible, because I'm like, pick your favorite, and I'm like, I think of everything, whatever the category is, I think of everything that I love in that category, and my brain like freezes up and cramps and I can't deal. So so I'm fascinated when somebody can say, well, that's my favorite book. So talk a tiny little bit about that, and then we'll look at the passage itself.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny when you said, like, just think about passages that you love. And I kind of did the same thing. I thought, oh my word, we're going to be there for 5.5 hours. But interestingly, the first few that came to my mind, like just like that, were from Philippians, and Philippians 4 in particular. So yeah, I think I'm naturally drawn to this book for whatever reason. I mean, it's just I don't know. There's a lot of acknowledgement of grace in this book, in this letter, and I just really appreciate it. So yeah, and then of course, being basketball fans in our house, of course, one of the Toronto Raptors has Philippians 4:13 on his arm, and so the first time that my son and I noticed that, we were like, "Oh my gosh, look, he's got a Philippians passage!" Ah! So anyway, so yeah, I don't know. There's this book just draws me in. This whole letter to the church at Philippi, it draws me in. It reminds me not to dwell in the past. It reminds me to keep looking forward. It reminds me of tremendous hope. It also reminds me to express gratitude for the people in whom I see the grace of Christ. So like my buddy Morley, for example.
Yep.
He's one of the, I mean, I could be here all day naming people, but yeah, I think that's why. And so when I started thinking about passages, I thought, yeah, I always land in Philippians. So here we are.
Yeah, and this is I love these verses as well, and especially verse 13. So I think it's great that this is what we're talking about. So let's see. Let me share with you a little bit about where, in my study, where I went. Um, in the Message, so I always like reading Paul in the Message because I think it just gives me a different spin, and sometimes it makes sense out of passages that I'm struggling with, or
Yeah.
Paul has his like language that is very, I'm gonna just say lawyerish at times. It's that dense language that is sometimes hard to understand. So I often go to the Message to see what it says. And the Message, rather than saying I rejoice greatly in the Lord, it says I'm glad in God, which I just, okay, first of all, there's some alliteration there, so my English dork gets happy about that. But I also I just thought that's such a simple way of saying it, that sometimes when we use words like rejoice, people think, oh, it's so churchy, or oh, those are the religious people, and they use these words that nobody uses. But how often do you say I'm glad? Oh, I'm so glad. Oh, I'm glad
Yeah.
that worked out. Right.
Yeah.
So saying I'm glad in God to me was quite a lovely way of expressing that, and talking about how he feels in all situations. So thoughts on that? Anything you want to respond there, or?
Well, verse 13 is a verse, actually, when Bruce and I first met, and one day we got talking about favorite scripture passages, and that's his all-time favorite. He absolutely loves 13. And he definitely gets his strength from Christ. It's an amazing thing to watch and to listen to. Um, but I think too, the other thing that really strikes me about the gladness and the joy that Paul has as he's expressing this is, I just kind of wrote some notes down to myself here, thinking I better keep myself organized, or again, we'll be here all day. He's giving thanks. He gives thanks for the Philippians because they have contributed to ministry, not to him,
Mm-hmm.
but they've given to his ministry so that it can continue. And he goes on, to say, I know what it's like to be made humble. I know what it's like to live with and without, and to have not. And to, he talks about that contrast, and that he knows how to live in both situations, kind of thing. But then he just seems to be offering this gratitude for how the Philippian spiritual life is growing and maturing as they're giving to him so that his ministry can continue. And I just, there's that moment of grace in that part that I think, wow, it makes me think about, we always will fall back on, God loves a cheerful giver, which God does love a cheerful giver. God also loves a cheerful receiver, or recipient.
Yeah.
And Paul is just such a model of being grateful to have received such a precious gift for such a precious purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They're not giving him a gift card to go shopping. They're saying, here are resources for you to continue your message and sharing the word of Christ.
Yeah, which is so important right now, because as our churches are unable to meet in person, one of the concerns that I know all ministers have had is what's going to happen to our budget. How are we going to continue to do ministry? And it's been really sweet to see how in the different conversations with colleagues, what we've seen is that for the most part, understanding that some people aren't able to give right now, but for the most part, people have been incredibly faithful about that. And that's one of those things that as a minister, it sort of gives you that warm fuzzy, oh, thank God for my people, because I couldn't do it without them. And if they chose not to be faithful, we'd be in a very different situation. So yeah, that's a great point to make, even as we make our way through this weird year.
Oh my, yes, it's been fascinating so far. It's opened up a lot of opportunities too, though, I think, in terms of how people, certainly in our context, we've expanded the opportunities for how people can give, ways to give.
Yep.
we're still very grateful for the traditional methods of giving through, physical offerings through envelopes, that kind of thing. And we know how much that means to people to be able to contribute in that tangible way of putting something in. And there's a sense of not sure what the word is exactly, but, when you're watching people contribute to the offering, and, before all this happened, when we were passing the plates, and you watch people placing that offering in, there's a feeling in the air at that moment where people just seem to be so glad to give, no matter what they can give. And so now, in this time when we're not gathering for worship and not passing the plates and such, and when we do gather again, we're not going to be passing the plates. So how do we, we'll still have that opportunity, but now we've been able to also expand it to electronic giving in various means. So we're still giving that opportunity for people to respond to God's grace with a gift of grace. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the response that I've heard from people, is that they're saying they're so glad that they're still able to give, those who are able.
Yeah.
And I was reading something this morning here. My eye just happened to catch it again. I was reading something this morning about this passage, and the commentator, and don't ask me who it was now because I can't for the life of me remember which book I was looking at. But the commentator was saying that their giving demonstrates, the Philippians giving to Paul demonstrates where their loyalties lie. And it demonstrates their strengthening commitment to God through the support of the ministry. And when I got thinking about that, I thought, this is not about money. That that's the tangible reality of the gift, but it's not the gift. It's the giving of. So when I look around this place right now, and I look at the gifts that people are giving with regard to their prayer time, their phone calls to people who are living alone, those who are sick, like there's just such an amazing offering of personal support and spiritual support, that there are gifts abounding all over the place right now, and they're all being done because we are the church. Mm-hmm. So I go back to that right at the beginning of this whole thing. I think I sent it to you there. I was given this great picture saying the church is not closed, the church has been deployed.
Yes.
And I mean, in this area, that means a lot too, with the base right here. And it's been amazing to see the church at work out there far beyond the walls of the building. So there's that sense of giving of ourselves that really strikes me in this passage. And then that last verse, 13, about being able to do all things through Christ who gives us strength. That's how we're able to get through this. And that's how we're able to still be cheerful givers, but also cheerful receivers in this time, because God has given us a lot, me anyway, and I'm hearing this from a lot of people, the blessings have just been stacking up during this time as well. So it's
that piece about receiving is so important, because I don't mind I'm happy to give, just make me receive, because I'm not gonna and so, and even, I was texting with a friend the other day, and I sent him a picture of actually, I ended up putting up on Facebook as well, a picture of Koski and I cuddling. And I was like, oh, my stupid double chin. And he was like, you're beautiful and you need to accept that. And I was like, I just, don't say that, because then I'm like really uncomfortable accepting those things. And it wasn't something that I was fishing for either. It was just, but it's that, I think there is this piece of us, especially in middle class Canadiana 2020, we're so independent and we're so used to being independent that we're not always good at relying on each other or accepting the gifts that the church is meant to give each other. Like that's the whole point of it, right? So I'm glad you brought that up, because it's an important thing, and I know it's something I'm trying to work on, inch by little inch, as it were. So one of the things that I found interesting was in one of the commentaries I was reading said, going to that verse 13 part, it said, who strengthens me, or you could phrase it as, who is my strength. Christ who
Yes.
strengthens me, or is my strength. And I like the is my strength thing, because I don't know, it's just a different way of putting it that for me reminds me of who Jesus is, and therefore why he makes a difference to me.
Yeah.
Him rather than about me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Very much so. I mean, he is the giver, like the giver.
yeah.
And it's humbling to receive his blessing. And we don't feel, well, we aren't entitled to it. And yet he has such joy in giving that how can we be anything but joyful in receiving?
Yeah.
And then not keeping it for ourselves, like receiving his blessing and then carrying it forward.
Yes.
Through our relationship.
For us, he models that when the woman pours out the perfume on his feet. He doesn't go, whoa, no, that's uncomfortable, get away from me.
Yeah.
And when people welcome him into their home and give him a place to eat, and he has this ability to accept all of that and not be awkward about it. And I like, again, how we know Jesus is better than human, because human is, oh, I'm so awkward about this and I don't know how to receive that. So there's a real piece in that of how do we receive well, and understand that is a means of grace too.
Yes.
Because people want to give support, encourage, and if we block that, or we find ways of saying, oh, no, I'm not worth that, it's almost a way of blocking their worship or their spiritual experience.
Yeah. If you deny somebody's genuine gift, then what does that say about the value that we place on what's in their heart that prompts them to give? That quick phone call that comes in, just checking in on you. Oh, you don't have to check in on me. I should be calling to check on you. All of a sudden you've denied the grace of that moment.
Yeah.
And we're all guilty of it. All of us. I've learned over the years, and particularly in the last few months, of course, that when I receive a message, either through email, text, whatever, with somebody who is expressing gratitude, joy, concern, whatever, I've learned how to say thank you. I'm not sure I always do it all that well, because sometimes it does kind of like, but I love being able to say thank you for such kind words.
Yeah.
Or for your words of encouragement.
I'm going to steal that from you.
Well, there you go. Thank you for your kind words, because they are kind and they are given in kindness.
Yeah.
So we need to receive those words with grace.
Yeah.
And say thank you. I mean, from the time we were little, we've been told, remember your manners, remember to say thank you. Well, this isn't just about manners. This is about saying thank you. I truly appreciate this.
Yeah, and I see you, and I see what you're doing in service of Christ, and I see that you matter. And there's a big value piece to that. I'm just a little worried about our time. So, not that I want to cut us off, but just any final thoughts, or I'm not sure that my Zoom won't just like end without. So any final thoughts?
Well, just my final thought would be for you, my dear friend, that you would be able to do all things that you are called to do through Christ who strengthens you, or who is your strength, and through you to your congregation as well. That's my prayer for all of you. I mean, especially in this bizarre time when we're not sure what the future holds. My prayer for you is that you will find that strength in Christ and carry on.
Thank you for such kind words.
You're welcome.
And you are a blessing to me, and your ministry is a blessing to me, and I'm glad that we got to have this time together. So bless you, and I hope you get a bit of a break as well this summer and are able to to enjoy and to relax a little bit, because I know that's been in short supply in the last few months.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and thank you. I appreciate that very much.
All right. God bless, and thank you for our Zoom conversational sermon.
You betcha. It was fun. Let's do it again sometime.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
All right.
Blessings.